earth is still flat, and clouds made of fire, and mountains reached up to the sky, sometimes higher. Folks roamed the earth like big rolling kegs. They had 2 sets of arms, they had 2 sets of legs, they had 2 faces peering out of one giant head, so they could watch all around them as they talked while they read, and they never knew nothing of love. It was before war. Oh, the origin of love. The origin of love. And there was 3 sexes and one that looked like 2 men glued up back to back, called the children of the sun. And similar in shape and girth was the children of the earth. They looked like 2 girls rolled up in one. And the children of the moon looked like a fork shoved on a spoon. There was part some, part of, part daughter, part son. Oh, the origin of love.
National Geographic just released its 25 happiest cities, and they created this to enlighten leadership. I found that fascinating because all of us here are what makes leaders possible. We put them in their position as citizens of cities. So really, while places shape us, we also shape cities, and it's a huge responsibility that we have. I was born in Galveston, I'm BOI for anybody who knows and loves that, thank you. And this Gulf Coast grit has served me well. The water is brown and salty, and you could lose your belongings at any minute. But that really is about through the strength and tenacity when people try to tell you no. I'm also the youngest of 3. My brother and sister were very close in age, and I was sort of that last little surprise. My mom calls me Angel to be sweet. But really, I think this helped develop my love of community, my love of more than just me, my love of how is it more than me? And while I was loved and nurtured, it's important to be more than one. High school, really, I was raised in the burbs everywhere we lived. In high school in Katy, Texas, I learned 2 important things. One, I discovered my love of cities. I was able to travel Europe at a young age and some of the best, most amazing cities in the world, but I also discovered Austin. I started coming here when I was 16, as a man, and found my passion for this city, whatever, Anyways, early on in my career, it was about 2001, I discovered Friends of the High Line. They were a community organizing group, and at this point, before the design competition, before what it was, they said, we as the team, we as a community can change the future. And Creative Times' response to 9/11 changed my perspective on life and the role the artists can play in the city. These years were the hardest and most rewarding of my life. I lost both my grandfather, my father, my first golden retriever, but it was also the best times. I was hired at 27 as the executive director of what was then Austin Fine Arts Alliance, and went to Art Basel for the first time. They shaped me. In 2008, we started our public projects programs. We started with both kind of these community-based programs, but also these place-based, and those both started to inform what the future of my work would become. Just pause. Anyways, you can see the project, I won great awards. Anyways, we started to deepen the conversation of the role an artist could play in a city that was transforming so rapidly. And I included this picture of the Chronicle because I was walking down the street the day after, I live in Atlanta, I was walking down the street the day after it was released, and I went down to pick up a piece of trash and throw it away, and it ended up being the cover of the Chronicle, and my face that I had just stepped on. So it's nice to throw that away and remember to always remain humble no matter how great your projects are. But what we learned in our projects is that people wanted to experience the city through this artwork. We also discovered that projects like a Red Swing project could uncover problems in the urban environment, like the health of our urban tree canopy. So the work was starting to really develop into something powerful. In 2013, we started to look at these alleyways, and we started to look at the superblock development that was taking these alleyways from us without us even knowing it. We activated the space. We're on the cover of Urban Land. I mean, things were really rocking. We were very excited about what we were doing. in a city that we love so much. September of that year, my board chair walked into he called me actually at 9 a.m. and said I'll be there at 4. He walked into the office and he said to me, "The board has decided to go in a different direction. We no longer need your services and Friday will be your last day." This was a Monday. I really leaned on that Gulf Coast grit to get me through that and my passion for cities. So I walked out of there, and the next day I called my long-term collaborator. She's based in Dallas, and I said, "Oh my God, this is what happened." She's like, "I'll be there in 3 hours." That night we talked about the future of our lives and drank a great bottle of wine. And by Wednesday morning, we had started Public City. By Friday, we had the website up, and by January, we had our first paying clients. Since then, thank you. Since then, we opened 2 offices, one in Dallas, one in Austin. We put public projects out in both cities. We've done cultural strategies in both cities, the state of Connecticut. And we followed College Football Playoff Foundation around in their host cities, in which they host the National Championship College Football, and done work for them. And of course, I'm from Texas, so I love college football. It's kind of a dream come true. But the project that has really helped develop the work that we're doing now is a project called Drawing the Lines. It was commissioned to address this 10-1 transition, this completely redesign of our political system and how citizens would be involved. I had the great opportunity to work with incredible artists and of course designers, DJ and his team. Thank you for that incredible logo. But they were on the front lines of this change in our community and these places that were never places before. And they stepped in with just fervor and fear, but yet willing to accomplish this goal. And while they were working in the districts, we were trying to find a place that could host something so important, so critical, a place where these projects could come together and represent our city. We landed on a site on Congress Avenue, which I felt there could be no other place. And although we had to go through electrical permitting and construction schedules and all this stuff, we opened the exhibition. And it was absolutely incredible to experience this little snapshot of our city that all came together under one roof for the first time, as diverse and as beautiful as it could possibly be, through the lens of these 10 artists and artist groups. It was a chance of a lifetime. And it's truly shaped the work that we're doing now in communities. And while we're not working necessarily, in these projects at the city scale, we're working at this micro level. And even a 4-block radius or a 5-block radius is something so rich and so deep when you focus on the history and story of the place and the culture that makes it what it is. This is a project in the Red River Cultural District. Next week, we'll install a project in Main Road. The following will be, our next district will be East 12 and South Congress. And while they're just miles away from each other, they're worlds apart in terms of their cultural story. This final project is a project called the Communities Table. We've been brought on by the Downtown Austin Alliance to talk to folks all over the city to help define the future of the city from voices that they haven't heard from in a long time. And as I said, I live downtown, so I often walk the trail, or in younger days, ran the trail, but I always stop at Luna. And I ask my city, is my work still benefiting you? Am I still an impact to you? Do I still make you happy? And while I haven't heard, yes, 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 you're amazing, I haven't heard no. Thank you.
Tonight I just want to talk about the weeds in my front yard. Let's go. My neighbors and I think most American homeowners regard their lawns as extensions of their indoor carpets. But I prefer to think of mine as a remnant of the wilderness. This poet Edward Dorn wrote in Gunslinger, "These green plots must be distress signals to God. Holy shit! From the great tribe they selected something to mow. My goal is to never mow my yard again or water." Now, I have to admit, a big part of that plan is my friend and lawn care specialist, John Wesley Coleman. He's a singer-songwriter. Yeah, this is Austin, right? You should check him out. He rocks. I'm trying to restore the native prairie. This is big bluestem, once the most abundant of all prairie grasses, and mostly responsible for forming the Great Plains of North America. The plant stands 3 to 4 feet tall, and the root can be up to 12 feet deep. built holding soil in place and providing powerful resistance to drought. The seed heads get these beautiful little, tiny little, fuzzy little purple and yellow flowers, difficult to photograph, and thanks to my producing partner, Drew Thomas, for making most of these. Next is eastern gamma grass, which forms these lovely bunches that are 3 to 4 feet tall, and the root can be up to 15 feet deep. These grasses were a favorite food of the buffalo, who cropped them a couple of times a year, but they could not stand up to continual grazing by cattle, and so were nearly wiped out. Gamma grass shoots up these lovely long stalks, 8 or 10 feet, with lovely long seed heads that have these beautiful little red gold tassels. The seeds are an excellent source of nutrition for birds and other lethal creatures. Next we have Sidotes grama, the state grass of Texas. It forms erect, wiry bunches, purplish oak-like spikelets with tiny orange flowers on one side of the slender stems, bleaching to pale gold in autumn. Oops. How did that get into my picture of weeds? Sorry, this is not the state grass of Texas. And please note, this photograph was taken in a state where it's legal to take photographs of cannabis. Now, these native plants attract and nourish wildlife, like this little yellow butterfly that often visits. And after extensive research of several seconds on the internet, I discovered it's named the little yellow butterfly. And that's no lie. And we have the ubiquitous drab northern mockingbird, state bird of Texas, genius of musical improvisation named Mimus polyglottus, a mimic of many tones. Now, every wilderness needs a predator to weed out the weak and infirm. This is the apex predator of my little piece of wilderness, a member of a rare and endangered species, the miniature mountain lion of central Texas. They call her Baby. Baby's real name is Morgana, and yes, she is a modern avatar of the famous witch Morgan Le Fay. She's utterly without conscience, as you can see. She wields vast psychic power. And that includes the ability to render herself, it's all about the timing, invisible. Now, no prairie is complete without wildflowers. Bluebonnets, Indian paintbrush, black-eyed Susan, Mexican hat, Esperanza, which, as you know, is Spanish for hope, which is a timely reminder in a state that's becoming rapidly more diverse. And as much as the flowers, I love their names. This is Indian blanket, also known as fire wheel, and Sundance, which is cool. Now, Baby wants to remind everyone that these Maximilian sunflowers are named for Prince Maximilian of Neuwald, Germany. He was a naturalist who led an expedition into the American West in the 1830s. Baby and I would also like to acknowledge the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center for inspiring the conservation of native plants. Also, Native American Seeds is a commercial supplier out of Junction, Texas. And they have a fantastic seed catalog, if you're into seed catalogs. So on behalf of Baby and of myself, thank you, and good night.
I could never stop moving, and I've always written poems. That's what makes sense to me. The language of my body and the language of poetry feel the same. That's how I express the unexplainable. I grew up in Minnesota. In this house, there was a corner grocery store at the time. I still feel rooted to that land, the seasons, longing for home, but I am home. I've lived with this tension my whole life. Navigating that is one reason I'm driven to create. My mom grew up in this house. My sister still lives there now. It's up the block from our store. There were always lots of flowers, the scent of lilacs and phlox, lily of the valley. When I go back, I sleep in my uncle's old bedroom, which is the room my mom passed away in. There are a lot of ghosts. A woman scatters rose petals between herself and the others. I am half my mother's age. She bends and folds herself over behind the branch of a tree, holding onto the trunk, head down, listening to chanting. Her head begins to sway. She looks up, hands climb the tree, walking up the branches, navigating the terrain. She reaches higher still, opens her hand up, watching, head lifted, tilted. Is it a bird? Her mother? Herself? That flies away? Arms embrace the branches, pelvis glued to trunk, hugging, supporting, rocking, rustling, jangling, death rattle, dry leaves falling, shaking, limbs breaking, the tree, the woman, collapse onto the floor, her face resting in the fallen petals. In my choreographic process, I'm always seeking connections with the artists I'm working with as a framework to build the work on. Through conscious connection and awareness, inspiration rises from the subtle details of our inner and outer worlds. I embrace and uplift each person's creative spirit. My work is about the group I'm creating with. It's collaboration. We step back, we step forward, everyone is heard. Everything exists within the house of our time together. We become a family by proximity. We fall in love, wanting only to find beauty and fulfillment in the process, to hear our own voices through the dizzying time that we're living in. Each ending of a project is a little death, a practice in letting go. I find my solitude in nature. Every garden pulls me toward it. Nature inspires me and claims me. It's my meditation, my church. Love the garden, any flower, any rose, love herbs. My childhood was spent on a lake in northern Minnesota, surrounded by 100 acres of woods. I yearn for this place. I still go there. This is my healing place. Laying for hours on the dock, looking up at the sky, watching the eagles, listening to the loons, feeling my heartbeat slow down, waiting for the answers. It's nostalgic, and oftentimes bittersweet for me to be there, surrounded by my parents, both gone, their parents, siblings, friends, all gone. Falling behind, in line with the scent, as I stand gazing over a swaying sea of color, deep, dark purples and roses that linger even after I pass. staying with me for hours so I can't think. Freud said that the impulse to collect is largely sexual. I am in love with the garden. The texture of impermanence moves me like no other. To gaze upon beauty so profound, I have no words. My impulse is to sing praises, to build up an Eden that has meaning beyond the sidewalks and street corners of my everyday life. So I collect. I inhale, smelling, feeling, rubbing petals over my face, cheeks, lips, between the tips of every sensory organ I can find, exhaling in color, scent, and the sexual simplicity of each plant that individually nods its own consent for me to love and admire it, even as it is dying. Falling behind, I am mesmerized by the calling, the longing to live in beauty's eye. Poetry, dance, nature, they're all the same for me. Dancing is how my soul releases the effects of the world from my body. I can't move if I don't move. Everything stays static, stuck. I need the rhythm. I need to distill the impact the world has on me into something that makes sense. The words, the movement, the garden, the continuous arc of birth and death and renewal, breathing and grieving again and again and again, longing for home, but I am home, wanting to keep the evil at bay, to make a nest with those I love, to feel connected to a bigger world than the one we find ourselves living in, to understand myself so I can understand others and continue to let go and breathe.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about how I accidentally became a muralist. So I started creating this visual language about 9 years ago during my college classes, mostly out of restlessness and angst, and not because I wanted to be an artist. Over time, the designs grew into a whole ecosystem with unspoken rules and its own sense of order. In late 2011, I hit upon a style that felt like my own, and I knew I was totally screwed. I was addicted to the stream of endorphins that I got from these compulsive drawings. I knew I had to figure out a way to make it work full time. Through sharing my work on Instagram, I started to get all kinds of challenges in my inbox. I said yes to literally everything, from painting shoes to soccer balls to SUVs and skateboards, mostly because it was absurd to me that people wanted to pay me to doodle. Eventually, most of these requests were murals, and when I completed a mural, I felt really proud of myself and happy with the result, but to be totally honest, every single one I vowed never to do it again. I could do a translation of my style at large scale, but I wasn't able to access the sweet spot that I had on paper with my skill set or the time frames and surface textures that I was given. I knew that the internal reward wasn't nearly enough for me, but all of a sudden I was considered a muralist. I painted this mural in Philly in 2015, and it mainly looks the way it does because I had a very limited time in Philly and I needed to use a lot of negative space. So these days, most commercial clients come to me with this image and they say, lots of negative space, mostly black and white, pops of color, not too much. And I took this to mean, don't go too crazy. So in 2016, when the curator for Facebook's art program encouraged me to stretch myself for my Austin commission, I knew I was going to take this opportunity to go all out, give up on the efficiency, focused work ethic that I had picked up from working in the commercial realm, and I wanted to give the employees a space that gets deeper the more time they spend in it, something that they couldn't digest fully right away. So my main takeaway from this project was that in order to get back to the process that I love, and I need to treat my clients like patrons instead of like clients, even if they don't consider themselves patrons. So since then I've learned a lot about how to do that, and mostly that means pushing back against the instant gratification obsessed culture that is normal in it now. Each section of the space had... I'm lost, sorry. Let me try not to freak out. the space. And to create something that I love, like, and that has a story, then I need to, like, oh God. I tried to create, so in the Facebook office in New York, I got another opportunity to work with Facebook in New York, and this opportunity I tried to like use the existing architecture and make things move around the space through like using the windows, so the light, and different fixtures that were existing in the space, like the fire extinguishers or whatever, and like working on the floor, I realized that I could use all of those like murals that I hated making. I could use all the processes and use them again in this mural. So every day felt like kind of a different mural. And then I could, like working on the floor is totally different. So you can actually like create a space that people can walk through and make events sort of that when you walk through it, you feel like maybe you caused it or like, you know, like this right here, I wanted to create this like kind of explosion, like all of these parts were coming together and like interacting. So, and this is the part where I realized how hard it is to give up on. This is probably, okay, I'm gonna just to the next part. I'm so nervous.
You're amazing!
The challenges of time management. I had to leave halfway through the Facebook mural in New York to go paint a mural in Houston at a Starbucks. This is like a mini mural that I worked on down like outside of Houston. So I got back to Facebook and finished up. It was 35 days total, and I kind of want to talk about what it was like to spend such a long time like crab walking on the floors of a giant corporation. This particular office is primarily occupied by marketing professionals, so they kind of embody this like New York hustle for me, and like in their clothing and the way they walk and the way they interacted with each other and the way that they even like talk. Like I listened to them talk on the phone. It was really intense. So from the way that they looked at me when I told them that they couldn't use the hallway for an undetermined amount of time. I stood out a little bit in my mismatched socks and my laid-back Austin attitude, just crawling around all day on their floor, eating all their snacks. I had a lot of questions for me, like, are you drawing that? Yeah. How long is it going to take? I don't know. What's it going to look like? I don't know. How long is it going to take? I don't know. What does it mean? I don't know. How long is it going to take?
I don't know!
I could tell they wanted it to make more sense. I could tell that things generally made sense for them, that they were frustrated that I wouldn't help them with that. As time went on, I could tell that they were starting to come up with their own answers because I hung around for so long. I got to witness the art through the work that it was supposed to. People started coming to me and telling me the stories that they were finding in my work, things I had never thought of, and they were making connections like The Simpsons or Candyland, random Japanese comics. And I realized that this piece isn't just my story, that putting my process and work out into the open, it becomes a communal story. And by taking my time with this one and getting to know the community that I was working for, I stumbled upon an even sweeter spot and thought again, I'm totally screwed. I've got to find a way to do this forever.
Our world is made up of 4 elements. Together, they create and sustain life. This PechaKucha is about my 4 elements, when I first discovered them, and how they created and continue to sustain me. This is my origin story, and it begins in Miami Beach, Florida. I moved here when I was 7 from Massachusetts, and it was like going from Kansas to Oz, like black and white to Technicolor. Art Deco enveloped me, and architecture became my first element. And my favorite architecture was the architecture of movie theaters. These movie theaters raised me, and I became obsessed with cinema that year. I saw Star Wars and Smokey and the Bandit over and over and over again. These theaters were my home away from home. But when I was at home, I was reading and drawing comic books. Thanos versus the Avengers, Thor battling the Guardians of the Galaxy, superheroes with secret identities, the mild-mannered, let's say, architect that puts on a mask and kicks ass. I was all in. 1977 was also the year that Elvis died and Van Halen was born. I was going to quote Diamond David Lee Roth, but instead Albert Einstein. I live my life in terms of music. I daydream in music. I completely relate to that. I see music in my head like architecture, and together they form my core. And in college, I treated them as equals. Student by day, rock star at night, I was Hannah Montana. But the two fueled each other, and my creativity, which is my superpower, was never stronger. But an architecture professor of mine at Weiss, who allowed me to pull stunts like this, told me that one day I was going to have to choose. You simply can't do both. And everyone knows that architecture is an old man's game. So, after graduation, I chose. I moved to Austin, Texas. I formed the best pop band of 1993. I played 4 South by Southwest. I got to live out of a van and never be home. I loved playing music, but I missed architecture, and I missed my other elements, and I missed my bed. So I chose again. In 1997, my college friends, Tim and Carrie League, opened up the original Alamo Draft House. And I was right back in one of my elements. And I have had the incredible privilege to design Alamos ever since. And I get to see movies there! And in 2001, I saw Hedwig and the Angry Inch there. And I fell in love with the character and the animation and the music. This twisted tale of a punk rocker with a secret identity trying to find their other half. Again, I completely related. But by now, architecture was in full swing. Getting to work for icons like Alamo Draft House and Kirby Lane Cafe, getting to design a factory for Collins guitars. I built a business, I had employees, I sat on boards and commissions. I was a responsible adult with a wife and kids, but I still felt like a kid. I even had the opportunity to build my dream house with a secret lair hidden behind a bookcase, you know, just in case. I didn't really miss music, but I also didn't know what I was missing. And then, in 2014, I saw Hedwig on Broadway, and this show bit me like a radioactive spider. I left the theater knowing 2 things. 1, after 17 years, I was going to have to form another band. And 2, like all great superheroes, I needed a costume. The transformation begins. This is where you imagine a Rocky-like montage of singing and strutting and trying on lipstick and weighing the impact of this on your children and the electricity of playing music with your friends. It turns out I did miss that. But behold, the sideways grimace, my Hedwig tribute, is born. And it was just like riding a bicycle. I mean, riding a bicycle in 4-inch heels and a dress. But the electricity was there, and I could feel my power stronger than ever. Sadly, every Superman needs a Lex Luthor, and the Texas legislature is filled with arch villains that want to control where you go to the bathroom. Now, this was a battle that I could fight on both fronts. Because I knew what it was like to have to go to the bathroom, the men's room, in a dress. And I was able to use architecture as a weapon against inequality, to use design to fight. Behold, the gender-neutral restroom. And soon, I became an advocate. Architects all over the country looking to do the same. Which brings us to now. Now I get to design movie theaters all over the country. And I get to watch the Marvel and Star Wars universe unfold with my kids and with the next generation of movie lovers. I am the mild-mannered architect that gets to transform into a musical superhero. I'm two halves of one whole. And it's the best midlife crisis ever. I'm incredibly privileged, and I'm incredibly grateful. And I'm going to use my superpower to make sure that we foster a world where everyone has an opportunity to explore their own elements and write their own origin story. Thank you. Well, hello. I actually just found out that I'm not getting paid for this, so I'll be taking donations behind the dumpster after the show. And that last presenter talked about origins, so I'd like to sing a song for you now, called The Origin of Love. When the earth was still flat, and clouds made of fire, and mountains reached up to the sky, sometimes higher. Folks roamed the earth like big rolling kegs. They had two sets of arms, they had two sets of legs, they had two faces peering out of one giant head, so they could watch all around them as they talked while they read, and they never knew nothing of love. It was before, oh, the origin of love. The origin of love. And there was three sexes there, one that looked like two men glued up back to back, called the children of the sun. And similar in shape and girth was the children of the earth. They looked like two girls rolled up in one. And the children of the moon looked like a fork shoved on a spoon. They was part sun, part earth, part daughter, part son. Oh, the origin of love. Now the gods grew quite scared of our strength and defiance, and Thor said, I'm gonna kill them all with my hammer, like I killed the giants. But Zeus said, no, you better let me use my lightning like scissors, like I cut the legs off the whales, dinosaurs in the lizards. Then they grabbed up some bolts, they let out a laugh, so I'll split them right down the middle, gonna cut them right up in half. And the storm clouds gathered above into great balls of fire. And then fire shot down from the sky in bolts, like shining blades of a knife. And it ripped right through the flesh of the children of the sun and the moon and the earth. Like some Indian god sewed the wound up to a hole, pulled around to the belly to remind us the price we paid. And Osiris and the gods of the Nile gathered up a big storm to blow a hurricane, to scatter us away, a flood of wind and rain, a sea of tidal waves to wash us all away. And if we don't behave, they'll cut us round again, and we'll be hopping around on one foot, looking through one eye. too. You was looking at me, I was looking at you. You had a ring so familiar, I could not recognize, 'cause you had blood in your face, I had blood in my eyes, but I could swear by your expression that the pain down in your soul was the same as the one down in mine. Oh, that's the pain that shoves a straight line down through your heart. We call it love. We wrap our arms around each other, trying to shove ourselves back together. We was making love, making love. It was a cold, dark evening, such a long time ago, and by the mighty hand of Jove, it was a sad story how we became lonely two-legged creatures. The story, the origin of love, that's the origin of love. Oh yeah, the origin of love. Woo-hoo, the origin of love. The origin of Thank you, Weiss.
Summer of 2013, I had just finished graduate school. I was very bored, and to combat that, I started sending people nice emails, designers, artists, whoever. One of those emails went to Benji Wagner at Polar Stuff, who in return offered me a bit of work, which is how I got introduced to this guy, David Rigel. Good timing. We got connected to a friend of a friend, decided to collaborate together. I had never met him. All of a sudden, we're sketching, drawing, working together towards this fun little project, and we really started to get to know each other and become good friends, which was a nice result of this random email I decided to send. But we had some fun, we drew some funny images, they ended up getting in the shop at Polar, but once the project was over, we didn't really have any client work that was appropriate for us to work on together, so we decided after about a year that we would just try our hand at starting our own project and collaborating with each other and possibly doing some good with it. The first idea we had was this happy numbers project where we would change the ordinal indicator of the numbers. As a collaborative, it was a good thing to realize that this was a bad idea. So after about 24 hours, we decided to scrap it, and we kept thinking, what else could we do that would involve some other designers, maybe do some good, have some fun. And one day I get a text from David, hey, what if we did something for the National Park Centennial? This was the right idea. We had no issue with this. It was immediately captured, yes, let's work on it, but all we had was something for the parks. We really didn't know what we wanted to do, and that's where it kind of ended. So this reminded me of when Danny McBride wrote the movie Your Highness. He came up with the movie title first, and then wrote the story, and we did a very similar thing. So we decided to call the project Type Hike, which meant that it was going to be a typographic-focused poster project for the national parks. We were going to invite designers, it was going to be collaborative, we were going to donate money to the parks, it was going to be great. That's where we ended. If we would have waited 1 week, this whole project wouldn't have happened. We moved very quickly. As soon as that text got sent, the next day we started working on branding. The next week we had a website up. A couple days after that, we had invited 60 people to participate. We moved very quickly, and it was insane. But it was going very well. But it allowed us to contact a lot of these people I had already emailed, which is one reason I like being a designer. You are accessible. If I like somebody, I can just email them because you put it on your website. So suddenly I'm emailing David Carson and Jessica Hish and all these fantastic designers that I've known for years and years, and they're responding to me and they're joining the project, and it gets very exciting. So we get our 59 designers. They're all there. They're ready to make a poster for us for this project. We have no idea what's going on. The logo took longer than anything. We make some buttons and some patches. It's becoming real, but it's now we're in this waiting game where we've sent these emails, we've made this request, and we don't know when people are actually going to respond. But then, at the beginning of August, we did our very first poster. Ryan Fears, Capitol Reef. I've never met this guy. I've never talked to him, I've never spoken on the phone, I've never met him in person. I emailed him and he made work for a project I conceived over text message with a guy. This was very exciting and it became very real at this point. So we started getting really excited, and then I started to see how professional designers work, how they build their files. They're sending us Illustrator and Photoshop. They're built very poorly. Jessica Hish's file was named final.jpg. That is the worst naming convention. What is she thinking? So I'm pretty alarmed by this, and it made it a little more entertaining. But the posters that got submitted, they're experimental, they're ephemeral, they're illustrative, and they're just so beautiful, and it really helped us challenge how people perceive national parks posters. They're not so classic, they're all over the place, and we invited a lot of different types of people on purpose, and they're so wonderful. But now we needed to sell them so we could make money, so I started sending more nice emails. Hey, write about us, hey, talk about us. And because I'm giving them all these beautiful images, and it's this great idea, and we're helping the parks, we got so much press, and all of a sudden we're doing all these things we didn't think we would be doing when we sent those text messages at the end of June. September 19th, yes, we sent our very first package. That means strangers are now interacting with this project that we built in a week. They're buying posters, they're buying postcards. Poor David in St. Louis is mailing everything. He's stuffing it by hand, writing all the labels by hand. I'm sure his marriage is suffering. On October 3rd, we talked on the phone for the first time. That means all 59 designers, the website, the logo, all the posters being shipped, everything being produced, all done by text message. We didn't even join Slack yet, so this was an insane phone call, and we both realized as soon as I called it, oh my God, well, we had not spoken. So after 4 months, this is December, we had sold $24,000 in posters, 15,000 went to printers, thank you printers for screen printing, 4,000 in shipping, and we were able to donate $5,000 to the national parks, and we became a nonprofit. This is only 4 months in. You guys know I'm time, right? Okay, let's be nice. We decided to start exhibiting, and the first exhibit we had was Polish Stuff Laguna Beach, nice full circle there. They exhibited all 59 posters in their new spot. We also got into the Library of Congress permanent collection. We started exhibiting at Type Directors Club New York, a bunch of universities and galleries around the country, and just started going. We decided to see if this thing would have legs, so we did a second series in April, May of 2016, focused on national seashores and shorelines, 2017. This included some great designers like Gail Anderson and Aaron Draplin, John Malinowski, my mentor from grad school, and this was a small set, 15 posters. To celebrate our 1-year anniversary, we released our third series titled Alpha Bees, 26 posters focused on endangered animals of North America. Got some great Austinites in here, Simon Walker, Steve Wolf, beautiful poster set. We just released a book. We're exhibiting at the University of Texas right now in the Courtyard Gallery. We're having a designer roundtable this Tuesday if you want to talk to some designers participating in the project. This was all just to benefit the parks and wildlife. So if I can give you any advice, if you want to do something, just get off your ass, do it. And if you need some help, just send a couple nice emails and magic will happen. Thank you.
How many of you have sent a text message with an emoji? Well, here's something new. My emojis are very different than your emojis, as you can see in this illustration. And timing is everything. And 20 seconds is a long time. Anyway, as human beings, we want a lot of things. And according to my business coach, we fundamentally, at our core, need to know two things. Am I okay, and do I belong? Think about it. Am I okay, or do I belong? And my childhood was very typical of people growing up in the 70s and 80s. Pretty soon you're going to see a picture of my parents getting married. It's very cute. And our life was very normal. We lived in the suburbs in El Paso, Texas. We had my sister Shayna and I, our dog Cindy Lauper, of course. We had an avocado green phone that was terrible, that had that long cord that gave you the ability to move about 3 feet. It was in the kitchen. But it was a lot of fun. It was great growing up there. And people often ask, well, what was El Paso like? It was, let me use my grown-up word, it was hot. It was really hot. There were tumbleweeds that we could set on fire. We rode bikes with no helmets. And we got to a certain age, usually about 16, you could literally walk across the border and drink beer without your parents' knowledge. They know. But a little perspective about my hometown, for those of you who don't know, El Paso sits in far west Texas. Immediately to the south of us is Ciudad Juarez, and then over here somewhere is New Mexico. And of that population, it's about 2.5 million. 90% are Hispanic, Latino, and or Mexican. So needless to say, me and this guy from El Paso, there are very few black people who live there, which is exciting and different and unique. But I knew I was different at a very early age because like girlfriends of mine started getting these haircuts. And my haircut never really looked like their haircut. They came in and said they got the Dorothy Hamill, if y'all remember it. And I had cornrows and braids and barrettes, and there was no amount of Aquanet or relaxers or hot things that would give me that hair. And remember, people want to know two things. Am I okay? And do I belong? And that was one of the first times I realized I don't belong. I'm not like the rest of them. Now imagine that you're at a dinner party and everybody's talking about the Sound of Music. How many of y'all seen that? I've never seen that. And the only musical you've ever seen is a musical, The Wiz. And when you bring it up, people are like, what are you talking about? They don't know. They don't remember the Flying Monkeys. I remember Michael Jackson and Diana Ross very well. Fast forward a few years, and there's another dinner party maybe in Chicago, and people are talking about their love of hip hop. And so there's always one who has to sing Rappers for Life. And then there's another one who has to talk about Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Me, I talked about my introduction from El Paso, Texas with Aerosmith and Run DMC. So needless to say, I'm one of a kind. Nixon being black, a CEO, female, and advertising, I'm truly unique. And I'm usually the only one. Ones. 11% of the creative directors in my industry are women, which is not a whole lot, but we'll get to that later. So I've often asked myself, how do I become, or how do I create the change that I want to see? And what I realized I was asking the wrong question. The question is, how do we create an environment where everybody is welcome and the environment is diverse? Now, diversity is not about replacing people. Diversity is simply about inclusion. It's about looking at the world through the lens of others and welcoming them in. Thank you. Diversity is more than the color of one's skin, their gender, and their sexual orientation. Some of our advertisers have missed the mark here. It's about the values that each of us bring to the table. It's about the pure purpose of us being around and existing. It's about bringing new ideas. It's about celebrating who we are. It's about creating a new status quo of inclusiveness. This is one of my favorite things ever because I didn't have to say it, the Austin Business Journal did. Thank you. And I don't pretend to have the answers to solve this problem, but what I do know is that it's going to take more than the Business Journal, the mayor's office, and a committed few to create this change. It's going to take a lot of us coming together to create new ideas and break the rules. And will this work all the time? Probably not. But when it does, y'all, it's going to be like chicken and waffles. Two things that don't belong, but when they do, they're delicious. It's about telling our stories and our history through people who look like all of us in this room in a real, authentic way that is also very accessible to everyone, not just a select few. I'm really funny when the timing works. Oh, this is one of my favorite slides. It's about changing systems. It's changing our idea about predictable outcomes and realizing those outcomes suck. This is one of my favorite groups in Austin because 100% of these girls, and that's how they refer to themselves as girls, not only do they graduate from the Ann Richards School, they also go to college. 100%. It's about celebrating who we are at our best and also celebrating our culture. So this is a picture from my wedding. I wanted mariachis as a normal black woman would. My husband wanted to jump the broom, so we did both, and it was awesome. And I want to live in a world where everybody feels like they belong and that they are okay. And these are my kids, they're very cute. And all kids should be able to walk in a room and feel like they belong and that they are okay, and that they are not an only one. So with that said, I want to create an environment, I want all of us to create an environment where we can walk into a room more specifically a boardroom, and be excited because we're the only one, because the table is full of only ones that look just like us or nothing like us. Don't you want that too? It would be fantastic. Thank you.
So yeah, my name is Brent Humphreys. I was born in Pleasant Grove, Texas, which is, to be precise, is kind of a sketchy, the southeast side of Dallas, which is kind of downtrodden. I think it's turned around. Oh boy, I'm already losing it. Let me use my cards here. Okay, growing up, my mom had a penchant for photography. She tortured us at Olin Mills, what seemed like 4 times a year. This is a photo that she took of us with her Canon A1 program that would later become my first camera. While I hated her taking photos, I loved the camera. This is my father. My father taught me a lot. He taught me how to bass fish, bowl. Most importantly, he taught me about work ethic. My father was a paper boy for the Dallas Times-Herald for 35 years until he retired. He often had to work 7 days a week, midnight to 7 a.m. It was very confusing to me why he had to work so hard. But okay, so this is my teenage years. This is when I was extremely confused. We had moved to a more affluent part of Dallas. Everything changed here. This car changed my life. I bought this car from who turned out this was an Auto Trader deal. The guy that I bought it from was a professional photographer named True Red. When I inquired about what he did, he invited me to his studio to come and check it out. 2 weeks later, I was on my way to Brooks Institute on an alumni scholarship based on his help. This was my first breakout image. I was hired by GQ to shoot Lyle Lovett, which got noted by Communication Arts and proved to be a real springboard for my career. This was also my first formal promo piece. As soon as I could afford to move to Austin, I did. I got out of Dallas and moved to Austin and started working for Texas Monthly. This was some coverage I did for Texas Monthly on the victims of Katrina at the Astrodome. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? Growing up, I was a huge cycling fan, so I always dreamed of doing the Tour de France. I finally decided to do it. I flew to Switzerland, drove through the night, pitched a tent, woke up, and this is what I saw the next morning. That was a 5-day trip. It inspired me. I knew that I had to go back and make more of this. This year I returned to cover the entire tour out of a van and by motorcycle. I took 2 assistants. I was shitting bricks because of the money involved and the stress and all of it. This was day 1, stage 1 of the race, and this gave me confidence. It felt really good to get a great image the first day. This guy was great. So he sees the strobes go off, and then he gets up. He senses we're there, and he's like, oh, and hits his jam box and starts playing "Eye of the Tiger" by Survivor, and insists that we drink a jug of sangria with him. While the Tour de France study was less about the race, it's more about the ambiance and the atmosphere. Who can deny the beauty of a team time trial? This particular image, I had an assistant that had to run 12 kilometers with a 20-pound battery to be able to get this shot because we were pinned in by the race officials. Meanwhile, back in the States, we were hired to photograph the cast and crew of Breaking Bad in Albuquerque. Bryan Cranston was total genius, unbelievable to work with. Just, such a blessing that I get to do this and meet people like this. None of this would be possible, again, without my mentor. This is a photo from Moscow. This was a posthumous piece on the murder of a Russian spam king. He lived life in the fast lane, drugs and sex clubs, so we had to spend a week over there kind of covering his footsteps. That was for Wired magazine. I think this is what was in last month's Wired magazine. This is U.S. astronaut and commander Scott Kelly, who has, I think his book came out a couple days ago, Endurance, about his year in space. He was a delight to work with. This was over in Houston at Ellington Field. So I hit a midlife crisis in my 40s, and I decided to start a nonprofit for kids that would help, kids like me that, college and fraternities and the Greek system, none of that shit made any sense to me. If I hadn't met that mentor, I was close to going to the Navy. I saw Top Gun back in the day, and that, But anyway, these are some of the things that we've done. Tex Avery is from Taylor, Texas, creator of Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. We created a memorial project for him. We've done a marker. We're working on a documentary right now. You can visit Taylor to visit the marker in downtown Taylor. We had a big flood a few years ago, so we branded and created a campaign to raise money and awareness. We got some shirts screen printed with industry. Kids in my program did the photography and the social media, and we raised in the end, I think, about $8,000 to help flood victims in Taylor. What we're most known for is our 50-50 project. We decided that we wanted to try to raise money and awareness to get a skate park for Taylor, so we had the idea of sending letters to artists around the country and raw skateboards for them to do their work on. Many of these artists are here tonight. In 3 years, we sold 350 skateboards to 15 countries around the world. We raised $100,000. We got a Tony Hawk grant, a Union Pacific grant, a state grant. Now the kids in Taylor, Texas are going to get a $550,000 skate park. In spring of 2008, it was all raised, all the hard work was raised by kids. I would be remiss if I didn't mention I've survived this midlife crisis. I've done a lot of great things in my life, but none of this would be possible without my mentor, my parents, and most importantly, my rock, my wife, and my sons. The one on the left could use diapers, the one on the right, shoes. So if anybody has any creative projects, please inquire. Thank you.
Shaped by people. So this is my story about the people who shaped me and how that led to hope in Austin. I was raised by my Chinese mom, and she taught my brother and I the importance of culture and history. We were the only Eurasian kids we knew, so learning where we came from was super important. In Chinese culture, elders play a big role as mentors, so my mom made sure that we had great ones. They taught us about love and cooking, arts and poetry, heritage and traditions, music and fun. All things that I think truly shape cities. So how did I get to Austin? Well, my awesome dad moved here, so I got to go to UT, and I graduated in advertising as an art director. I got a job with the first 100% green agency, Enviromedia, and I got to design logos for Don't Mess with Texas and work with incredible people. If you'd like to hear more about the Matthew McConaughey Bongo story, see me after the show. But in 1999, I decided to go to Kenya to see my Aunt Suze. She taught me a lot about life and community. Well, I came back and I quit my job in advertising. That day, I went to graphic glass and told my friend Reggie Thomas. She gave me the keys to her studio and said, "You can office here if you want." So I had no idea what I was going to do, so I started doing graphics for films, and then I helped start a small magazine called Push. But in 2003, I felt my calling. Burn the Box movement. We showcase artists in places for lease or for sale the last Sunday of every month, and it became a real Austin thing. Then I met another woman who shaped my life, Christabel. You may know her from A&F Souvenirs or Tammy Preston on Twin Peaks, but she called me and said, "Hey, do you want to bring Burn the Box to LA?" And I said, "Yeah." And we moved into an apartment in Santa Monica, and together we started another story, the one about hope. Okay, LA 2006. I meet Captain Brian Seidel, the subject of the film about the genocide in Darfur. Shepard Fairey and I meet, we talk about this idea I have for the Hope Campaign, and together we help millions of people learn about Darfur. Then a buddy of mine calls, says, "I'm helping my friend run for president." Well, Shepard then becomes the first street artist in the Presidential Portrait Gallery in the Smithsonian. Okay, so 2009, I moved back to Austin and I bring hope with a mission to connect creatives with causes through projects and events. And we start the Hope Farmers Market at Pine Street Station. And now starts the story about the Hope Outdoor Gallery. So in 2010, my friend Mariska, who shaped me, says, "Hey, hey, there are these walls in my neighborhood that I've been dreaming about putting posters on. Maybe we could promote the farmer's market there. And I was like, dude, these walls are huge. What are you thinking? So we went and talked to the owner about this idea, and Vic Ayed loved it. He totally supported our idea to utilize the walls for muralists, street artists, and community groups with positive messages of hope as a temporary gallery. So I called Billy Bishop and Slope, and I asked what they thought. They were in, so then I called Shepherd again to launch the project, and boom, the Hope Outdoor Gallery was born. It definitely didn't happen overnight. My husband Bob and I had to weed whack, clean up garbage, old mattresses, but soon the artists started coming. It was a chance for many artists to work in calm sunlight and not in the stressful dark. It was a new place for people to express themselves, feel inspired, and experience art. Nobody knew it would become a top tourist spot in the city, let alone an international icon representing Austin around the world. Did you know that we see 50 to 100 people per hour, per day, rain or shine? I'm constantly told it's the first place that someone brings someone when they come to Austin. Who knew it would gain support from historic Austin folks like Steve Wertheimer, Bob Daddio-Wade, Chris Layton, and a new generation of art folks like Tony Diaz, Chris Scull, Antonio Madrid, and Nate Nordstrom. Who knew that it would become the spot for thousands of people to use for marriage proposals, birthday celebrations, youth volunteer groups, family photo shoots, music videos, corporate retreats, art field trips, Eagle Scouts, and yoga classes? Who knew it would become the #1 recycling project in the city that would help expand Austin resource recovery, save thousands of dollars for art programs around Austin, and help dozens of artists have full-time job employment. Over 11,000 pounds of repurposed material and paint have gone through the Hope Outdoor Gallery. Who knew that we would collect 8 years of data from an art project that was only supposed to last for 3 years? It was a public art experiment that turned into a testimony to what our city and culture wants and needs. A place to express and share ideas, a place to be creative, a place to learn about art and experience it with others. So we started looking for a permanent home for the Hope Outdoor Gallery, using all this input from artists in the community. For 3 years, we met with the city, parks groups, arts groups, and supporters to find the perfect new location to relocate the Hope Outdoor Gallery. We put together huge ideas to make a world-class art park for Austin and found teams of volunteer architects, landscape designers to create renderings, concepts, and presentations to share why Austin loves this art park so much. We collected hundreds of community stories and photos and called videographers and editors to help make videos to raise funds to make 2 art books documenting the stories, art, and memories that have all come from the Hope Outdoor Gallery. And finally, we have found a new home. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you about it tonight, and I'm so sorry for the major teaser. But we are going to be announcing it Friday, November 17th at our Hope Preview Night for our annual art show, Hops for Hope. So please stay tuned for the details and join us at Fair Market to celebrate during East.
Hi, my name is Betty Sue, and I write sad songs. Despite growing up surrounded by suburbia, I pined since I was a kid to live in an industrial setting. An old firehouse, a factory, a warehouse. I'm still drawn to the fossilized remains of the industrial past, like the stacks of Bethlehem steel. They're beautiful and complex, a pleasing design that created pollution, layoffs, and rust. Like so many physical objects, they're a tangible reminder of change, grief, progress, the ever-evolving identity of who we are. When I was a kid, I didn't strongly associate patriotism with radical ideology, but now I see a figurine like this, and I don't just find it tacky, I feel threatened by the symbols of my own homeland. What are the things we've lost? My friend Muffin Sophie lost her son's hairbrush when my friend Michael and I accidentally stole it while on tour. Isn't it funny how something inexpensive and easily replaceable can drive us crazy when we can't find it, and once it's found, all is well? Toss it, Sophie instructed us. And then there are losses that are more personal. Though it seems unfathomable, we lose things that were once a very real part of us. Like Cochita here, who lost his tail, which I imagine was why he was in the dumpster where Gary and Aileen found him while treasure hunting. They loved him at first sight, adopted him, and they've taken him around the world. And then there are losses that come with happy news, like my pal Will, who moved to Memphis to be with his wife Amy, and I don't have my trash wine imbibing, guitar slinging, miniature golf bestie here with me anymore, and I miss him often. But mostly I'm happy for the happiness that he's found. And I'm happy for charming stories that have been preserved from Heart Mountain, this beautiful land in Wyoming, where over 10,000 Japanese Americans were unjustly interned at a concentration camp at the instructions of FDR, one of the most progressive and hand-reaching down presidents our country has ever known. But I'm not Japanese American, and I'm not a China girl either. But I grew up with exotic images that defined Asian identity and caused a lot of distress in my childhood. I remember being a child hearing this song and seeing this image and wondering how this rock god of mine might see me or not see me as a whole person. These musings returned a few years ago when I started recording a covers record of David Byrne and David Bowie songs with my friend John at our friend George's house. Bowie died about a year after the start of the record, and then George got sick. I couldn't bring myself to finish the record at the time, and it's still unreleased. George was a champion to many in his too short life, as was Louis Myers in his goofing off here with me as we snuck up on Bill Kirchen and pretended to be folk music paparazzi. I never saw Louis stumble on a single name at Folk Alliance. There were thousands of bearded singer-songwriters in one hotel at the same time. Louis could tell you something about almost all of them. I met Louis through Jimmy LaFave, another champion and friend and mentor who went too soon and who told me I ought to go to Folk Alliance one day. And when I finally did, he took me by the arm and introduced me to an entire conference hall full of people. His voice could woo anyone, and he tried to use his to woo people into giving me a chance. I've had these sneakers for years, since way before I knew George, but now I can't wear them because they remind me of his Pumas. Thousands of people wear Pumas, and mine remind me of George. It's funny how our brains do these things to us. Like my friend Butch and his photos of towns. Butch has the pleasure of seeing his friend's face captured on the other side of his camera, and he has the bittersweet reminder that he won't see towns again in this world. I never met towns, but when I see photos like this, I always wonder what people are saying in those conversations. And do you wonder, like I do, when you drive by houses that look haunted, what people talked about inside these walls and what they talk about now? What previous residents talked about? Do you wonder if the old owners pass by and wonder if any of the walls have been moved inside, and if any of their happy or sad memories have left ghosts and impressions behind? My beloved now is a painter, and Charlie paints about the things that I write about. We both like broken, sad, monochromatic shit. Spending time looking at and thinking about the sad and broken shit of the world that is no longer made as beautifully in modern times makes us both incredibly happy. He captures in his paintings what Susan captured in this photograph of him years ago. Is it strange that I can feel a kind of loss for not knowing him back when this photo was taken? Is it strange to feel lost for something that you could not have possessed and did not possess? If it is, then I am strange pretty often. And then there are the losses that come despite our innocent expectations, like the time a foot massage turned into an attempt by my masseuse to give me a happy ending. I like sad endings. I did not want a happy ending. I laugh about it now, but it still makes me tense up, honestly, when I think about it. And it's probably because it was only 2 months after I met Jake Finney, who drugged, assaulted, and raped me at a music festival, and has to this day faced 0 legal consequences for his actions. There are plenty of reminders in the news these days that remind me every single day that this part of my story is not unique. It was harder than the previous rape that I'd survived in my life, and maybe it was because I was older, and maybe it was because I was more independent. I don't really know why. But I didn't know that it would only impart a fraction of the grief that came from getting divorced from one of the best humans I'd ever known. A guy who was so good and likable that our friends dressed up as him for Halloween. After splitting up, there were days that I felt so ready to just give up on everything. And then the plumbing in the house I moved to had to be dug up. The concrete sawed and jackhammered in a hole the size of a large coffin cut out of the ground. I joked endlessly about that being my new bed. But the old becomes new, as they say. And that same plumber who installed the new pipes then refurbished this old stove for me. I still find joy in the beauty of old, broken, inefficient shit. Like my old stove that takes forever to boil a pot of water. But she is a very beautiful thing.